This might just be botulism in a bottle, and we're going to run it through the still. Hello, welcome back to the channel. My name is Beaver, and today we are attempting to distill and ferment a dairy-based product. Now, I know what you all are saying, but Beaver, yeast does not consume lactose or milk sugars. You're absolutely 100% right, and that is one of the main reasons why I wanted to attempt this experiment to see if something interesting would happen. Now, yeast consumes a whole bunch of different kinds of sugars. Sucrose, fructose, glucose, all of those kind of sugars yeast love to consume. So from normal table sugar to something that you will find within fruits, yeast will consume it. But lactose, the milk sugars or the sugars you find in milk, yeast does not like to consume those sugars. But we like to have a lacto acid or a lactic acid fermentation happening when we are making a whiskey or a rum. It does produce some nice funky flavors. So that's exactly the reason what I thought what we need to do is we need to do a fermentation, but also have some dairy or some lactose in there so that lactic acid fermentation can actually take off and create a whole bunch of flavors. Because normally it's a byproduct of the fermentation, but now we're going to have it running in parallel to the actual fermentation, and hopefully the alcohol as well as the lactic acid fermentation play well together during the fermentation as well as during the distillation. Let's quickly have a look at how we built the recipe. Now, the first thing we started with was a packet of the dairy product. Now, this is a strawberry flavored milk juice lolly. On the back, the ingredients state sugar, milk powder, and permitted flavorants. So those are the only ingredients that is present in this little baggie. But however, this is a whole bunch of sugar. It's not enough sugar to actually give us the amount of alcohol we require to actually have enough alcohol in the fermentation, because one of these packets makes about 5 liters. However, when you mix this packet into 5 liters of water, you end up with a very viscous milkshake consistency, and that is not what we want, because if we're going to add more packets into a 5 liter to bump the sugar volumes, we're going to end up with something about the consistency of yogurt, and that is, number one, not going to be able to ferment properly, and number two, it's not going to be able to actually be distilled. It's going to scorch the living hell out of our still. So what we did is we added 2 of these packets into a 5 liter fermenter, and then we bumped the sugar volume by adding some brown sugar. Stock standard store-bought brown sugar, just to bump the ABV up to a level where it is acceptable to be distilled. And we ended up with this. Now, if you look closely, you'll be able to see on top all the milk solids curdled because of the alcohol that was produced and raised to the top. Now, what does it smell like? Here we have a nice little jar with some of the fermented liquid. Now, the smell is alcohol heavy right up front because we added enough sugar in here to actually get to about 12 to 15% ABV. But there is a distinct yogurt smell coming off of it, as well as a chalky kind of smell, which is quite funny because when you were small, or when I was small, you got those scented crayons or scented chalks, and well, I don't know what scented, I thought it was edible chalk, but yeah, don't worry. And it has that chalky kind of dry smell, but it has a small little hint of vomit. Not the sour vomit, but yeah, that smell you get from vomit. And I think that is where the yogurty type of smell comes in. So yeah, but there are some milk solids floating around on the inside of it. Let's see if we can't get some light into the situation. Yeah, some milk solids, but yeah, okay. So we dumped everything into a fermenter, and then we used my favorite yeast of all, AM1 distiller's yeast. Now, if I'm doing any funny experiments, I always tend to lean towards the AM1 distiller's yeast, because this yeast chews up just about anything, and yeah, it's pretty much heat tolerant because it ferments from about 20 degrees all the way up to about 30 degrees centigrade. And here in South Africa, temperature fluctuations huge. So yeah, but let's quickly get this into our still and see what kind of product we get out. Now, the still we'll be using today is my small 10 liter or 15 liter pot still. Just has a standard little column at the top, but because our fermentation created a lot of solids, as you saw when I poured it into the still, there's a lot of solids still in there, and it's a very viscous liquid. I did remove most of those milk solids, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the still, and then I'm going to stir it as it's heating up to prevent anything from scorching at the bottom. Once we reach the temperature where we start getting vapor to come off, then I'm just going to cap the still, and then we're going to do the run. So yeah, I'll see you guys once we enter the run and we start getting first drips. Okay, so the still is up and running, and I thought I'd just pop in here real quick just because I picked up something interesting. Normally on this small little still, I start getting first drips when I get close to the 80 degrees centigrade mark. But with this run, with the dairy inside there, I don't know if it makes a difference or there's something else coming off the still. Haven't tasted it yet. But I started getting first drips at about 60 degrees. So yeah. Funny enough, the stuff that's coming off there at the bottom actually just smells and tastes like nothing. Doesn't taste like water. Doesn't have a sting normally that you get from 4 shots. So yeah, just going to keep running this, checking the drips and tasting it up until we start getting into the 4 shots. Hopefully the temperature reaches closer to the 80 C, and then we start getting alcohol off. But I just thought it would be interesting just to pop in here and tell you that yeah, the first stuff that comes off when we are distilling the milk base doesn't taste like alcohol at all. The still has now hit about 80 C, and we are starting to get alcohol coming off the still. So yeah, pretty interesting. Don't know. Now the moment we have all been waiting for, the proof is in the pudding. Now, the run didn't really go any weirder than it started off with us getting that weird funky no flavor product right at the beginning. The moment it hit the 80 C, we started getting the normal alcohol smells. Talking about that, we took off a small 4 shots cut. We took off a small heads cut. The smell on the heads, standard smell, nail polish remover, that kind of funkiness. And then we went straight into the hearts. I collected a nice clear jar of hearts. Does smell like strawberry. Does have a faint little, I don't know if I can say, milkshakey, yogurty kind of smell to it. But other than that, yeah, run went rather good. Let's quickly check the proof. Let's quickly check our ABV. I was expecting it to come off at about 70%, and yeah, so we're sitting at about 72% for hearts, which not a bad run. Now this is sitting at a lacquer high 72%. Smells still the same. You get that kind of yogurty vibe, strawberry yogurt. Well, on the taste, remember that chalk I spoke about? That you have that almost drying kind of smell to it, like dry cement, chalk. It has that kind of flavor that dries out your tongue, but it does finish with a nice, lovely little strawberry flavor, and it feels more creamy, if that's even possible. Feels thicker than a normal concentrate type of distillation. So yeah, does adding a milk product into your fermentation change the way the product tastes? Absolutely 100%. Will I do it again? Probably not the milk into the actual fermentation. But what I will be doing, and maybe this is an experiment that I'll post to the channel, let me know if you're interested, but maybe add some milk powder into the still and mix it into the final fermentation just before we start up the still, because the strawberry flavors are more pronounced than any strawberry flavor that I've ever gotten when I distilled a concentrate, pre-mixed cool drink or whatever. So yeah, the milk, the fats in the milk did add a additional level of flavor. But yeah, cool experiment. Now if you stuck around this far, thank you very much for watching and have a lekker day.